Unit 2, Part 2 covers, or at least tries to cover, the entire realm of online media, starting with the oldest and simplest formats and working our way up. We will cover the most popular formats you will encounter on today's web. Originally, the web was used for text-based information. Because of low bandwidths, media like audio and video would have been impossible 20 years ago. So all we had was text. The most popular text-based formats are plain text, hypertext, and word processing. Plain text refers to documents that contain only text, no formatting, and they use the file extension .txt. These are also known as ASCII files, ASCII, and every computer has at least one application that will read and save plain text. On Windows, this application is Notepad, and on the Apple platform, it's TextEdit. Web browsers can also read plain text files. A step up from plain text are rich text files, which use the .rtf file extension. These contain formatting, different font sizes, bold, italics, things like that, and therefore cannot be read by your web browser. Up next are hypertext files, which are the standard file on the web today. The most common file extensions are .html or .htm, but there are many others depending on what services a website needs to offer. For example, you'll notice that the RCC website actually uses .shtml. HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language, which is the programming code that web browsers understand. And we'll take a more in-depth look at HTML in Unit 3. Up next for text files is a word processing file, the most common being Microsoft's Word with a .doc or the new .docx file extension. Because word processing files are proprietary and they require a specific application to read and save them, they can't be viewed directly in the web browser. And finally, here we have Adobe's PDF format, which stands for Portable Document Format and uses the .pdf extension. Adobe provides a plugin for all web browsers that allows them to read PDFs called Adobe Reader. The PDF offers many advantages to word processing files because it can be viewed on the web, the text is searchable, and users can copy, paste, or print the files unless the author has disabled those files. Moving on from text, we next encounter image files. Did you know there are actually over 30 image formats available for use on the web, and that there's no set graphic standard? It's interesting. But three formats have risen to the top, so to speak, and are the most commonly used today. The first of which is the GIF or GIF, which stands for Graphics Interchange Format. GIFs contain only 256 web-safe colors and therefore have a really small file size. But they're not ideal for images that need more than 256 colors, such as most of those taken from a modern digital camera. This was really popular in the 1990s because you could actually create something called an animated GIF, which was a special GIF file with multiple frames that could be played continuously, which allowed for animation. Up next is the JPEG, which stands for Joint Photographic Experts Group. JPEGs allow for millions of colors, but they must compress the image to keep the file size down. So JPEGs should be used for things like color photographs, while you save your GIFs for things like logos and icons. And the third and newest image format is the PNG, which stands for Portable Network Graphics. It was developed by the W3C, which, if you remember, stands for the World Wide Web Consortium. The goal was to create kind of this best of both worlds, allowing for millions of colors like the JPEG, but without the need to compress the file like the GIF. So PNG is now supported in all current web browsers and is very popular among modern-day web designers. After images, the next level of multimedia you're likely to encounter is audio. Like images, there are tens, if not hundreds, of audio file types, but only a few have gained mainstream popularity. Up first is the WAV format, most used to contain uncompressed audio for CDs, actually. Waves are usually quite large because they're uncompressed. So the file size is pretty big, and therefore they aren't very popular on today's web because sharing the files is just not practical. But they are popular on the Windows platform itself and in the professional audio world because of the high quality. Closely related to the WAV is the AIFF, which stands for Audio Interchange File Format, and this is kind of like Apple's version of the WAV. Apple uses this. It's uncompressed, and it's also used in their professional audio applications on the Apple platform. Probably the most popular audio file format on the web is the MP3. It stands for MPEG-3, and MPEG stands for Motion Picture Experts Group. This format can be highly compressed, which drastically reduces the file size without losing too much quality. So you get the best of both worlds there, and because of its small file size, the MP3 is much more apt for online file sharing. Other audio formats include MIDI for synthesized music, WMAs for, that's Microsoft's streaming audio format, and the AAC, M4A, and M4P, which are Apple's formats used in the iTunes Store. So if you use the iTunes Store to buy songs or audiobooks, you'll be seeing these kind of file formats. And you should note that the WMA and the M4P, the P stands for protected, these are protected by DRM, Digital Rights Management, and that's used to help prevent people from breaking copyright law by sharing them illegally. So before moving on to video, I want to talk about streaming. We've said it a couple times. You've probably heard it a few times. We all understand that audio and video files are much larger than simple text documents, making it impossible to browse these files the same way we do simple text pages. When you view a web page, your web browser downloads the entire HTML file and displays it at one time. Trying to do the same with a 10-minute video would take forever and be virtually impossible on dial-up. And if you were disconnected for some reason in the middle, you'd have to start from scratch. This is why streaming was invented. Streaming allows you to start downloading a file and viewing it at the same time. Your computer will continuously download pieces of a file while you watch what has already been downloaded. Ideally, of course, the computer stays a little bit ahead of where you're viewing, minimizing the need to stop or pause viewing because you haven't downloaded that piece yet. We all know that doesn't happen, especially on slower internet connections. But streaming does eliminate the initial delay from having to download the entire file before viewing. Thus, once streaming became popular, online video became popular because now we had a way to view video on a slower connection. The most popular video format is Adobe Flash or Shockwave Video. Using the Adobe Flash Player web browser plugin, video sharing sites like YouTube have grown from what would have been inaccessible and impossible over 10 years ago to some of the most popular sites on the web. Other online video formats include QuickTime, the .mov files, Apple's video framework, which is cross-browser and cross-platform and runs all of the video viewed in iTunes. So if you download this podcast from iTunes U, you're actually using QuickTime inside of iTunes to view that video. Windows Media WMV files is Microsoft's video framework. And then there's also realvideo.rm files from Real Networks, which is free, like many other things here, but has never really taken off and become the internet standard that the company hoped it would be. New on the scene is MPEG-4 video. It's a newer file format, but it promises a lot because it can produce a very low file size, be highly compressed, but still retain a high quality at the end of the day. So we hope to see really great things from MPEG-4s in the future. And the last thing regarding online and offline multimedia concerning every file type and more we've talked about today. Never rename a file using a different file type or file name extension. If you have a GIF image and you want to change it to a JPEG image, simply renaming the file will not work. This process does not convert the file and will actually make the image unusable. There are applications that convert multimedia files from one format to another, such as Adobe Photoshop for images or Apple QuickTime Pro for videos.